Hey, what's up guys? Rideshare guy here, and today I've got a video for you on does Uber run a background check on drivers every year? So obviously when you first apply to drive with Uber, Uber runs a background check, right? You can check out the full requirements, but that's one of the big things that you first have to pass, right? You have to be able to pass a standard background check, right? But a lot of cities are actually now requiring that drivers undergo yearly background checks. So you may have gotten an email that actually asked you to refresh your background check, right? And basically what this means is that once you agree to this email, this notification that you get from Uber, they're actually going to run another background check on you again, just like you did when you first signed up, right? So this is going to look for all the typical stuff. Do you have any major felonies, any DUIs? Do you have any kind of, how many tickets do you have in the past few years? As long as you have 2 or 3 or less, you should be fine. And a lot of these things fall off. They don't look past 7 years for most states, but it's just a typical background check, the same one that you do when you first get started. And so this actually happened to me, right? Uber sent me an email and said, hey, it's that time of the year again or something like that. Your background check needs to be renewed, refreshed, right? And I actually made a mistake because I waited until the last minute to refresh my background check, and I actually got temporarily deactivated from the platform. And so I refreshed it, and guess how long it took? It actually took 4 days for them to process my background check. Now, that means that I wasn't able to drive for Uber for 4 days. Now, not a huge deal. I still went and did some Lyft, and it's just my part-time gig, so it wasn't the end of the world. But you can imagine if you're like me and you wait to the last minute, which I know a lot of drivers probably do, you actually kind of would have been screwed for those 4 days. You wouldn't have been able to work, right? That's, first of all, it's a great reason why you should have Lyft for at least a backup, because you never know when these types of situations will come up. And I've done lots of videos on insurance documents and various other things that cause your account to temporarily be waitlisted, and you can't work until it gets resolved. You're basically waiting for Uber to process the background check or waiting for Uber support to get back to you. So definitely sign up with Lyft so that you can kind of have at least a backup plan in case this does happen to you. And if you do come across this situation and you need to refresh your background check, you don't really have a choice. You sort of have to do it if you want to stay active on the platform. But if nothing in your history has changed in the past year, you'll obviously be fine. You should most likely, if you passed it the first time and you didn't go and get arrested in the past year, you should be fine. And so, it's not a big deal, but there are a few instances where I've heard of drivers actually getting deactivated because of this updated background check. So, like I said, all the same requirements apply, right? So if you go out and get a few tickets, and probably more than a few, but if you get 2 or 3 in 1 year or less than a year, or 4 or 5, it's a bunch of speeding tickets, that's something that you could potentially be deactivated, right? There's no hard and set rule for a lot of these things, but obviously the less is better. So you really want to think about, hey, you're out there driving, parking tickets don't matter, but moving violations, speeding tickets do matter. So that's something that, hey, you should probably look into. We actually started working with a company in California that actually helps drivers fight these tickets. They have these options in every state, so that's something that you might want to look into if you start racking up these tickets. But if you've gotten a few, don't be surprised. Hey, your background check could come back and, you may not be eligible to drive for Uber if you're not driving safely. And sometimes, so obviously the other major thing is if you're committing crimes or DUIs or anything like that, Uber's obviously going to find out when they run that background check. And sometimes I've actually even heard of them catching stuff that they missed the first time around. There's not a whole lot you can do about that, but just sort of hope that they don't find that. And basically the moral of the story with these updated background checks is that once you're approved for Uber, you can't just go out and drive like a maniac. You still want to drive safely, and you still want to make sure that you're following the letter of the law and being a good citizen and just a good driver in general. So I'd say that the updated background checks are a bit of a hassle, but from a safety perspective and making sure that the platform is safe and riders are safe, I think it makes a lot of sense. So if you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out below. Give me a like on this video if you like it. Definitely subscribe to the channel. We've got lots more great content, and look forward to hearing from you soon. All right, take care.